Last time we talked about how people from Asia crossed the Bering Land Bridge into what is now Alaska. Over thousands of years, their descendants spread across the continents, hunting, farming, and just living. Whole cultures grew up well before cities and Wi-Fi were even a twinkle in humanity's eye.
Now, we have go back to the 1500s, when a story of global trade, brutal conquest, and incredible resilience brought the first colonial-era Asians to the shores of North America. This is the story of the first Asian communities of the colonial era.
Long before the United States was even a thing, people from all over Asia were already crossing the biggest ocean in the world. And they weren't heading for California, they were landing in colonial Mexico. They built workshops, cooked comfort food with a local twist, and raised families that blended languages, crafts, and tastes.
For decades, Spanish crews could sail to Asia, but getting back was basically a coin toss. Usually the ocean won. Then in 1565, navigator Andrés de Urdaneta figured out that if you first rode the winds north, you could catch a reliable current east all the way to Mexico. Boom, round trip unlocked. With that
discovery pretty much unlocked a trade route of unimaginable wealth. To handle it, they started building these gigantic galleons in the Philippines, some of the biggest ships of their time. They'd set sail for Acapulco, Mexico, their hulls stuffed to the brim with Chinese silks, delicate porcelain, and enough spices to make your nose tingle just thinking about it.
Most of the crew were Filipino, actual wizards with ropes and navigation. There'd be merchants from China bringing goods or fixing whatever broke. You'd find people from all over squeezed onto the same floating house figuring it out together.
There were others too, unemployed samurai from Japan hired to keep pirates at bay. Yeah, imagine trying to board a ship and a guy in full kimono just casually unsheathes a katana. Hard pass. Then you had folks from all over South and Southeast Asia who got swept up in this trans-Pacific movement.
When those galleons finally docked in Acapulco, not everyone hopped back on board. A lot of sailors, merchants, servants, even escapees were like, yeah, this seems nice, and just stayed. They melted into colonial Mexico's already super diverse mix and became the first big long-term Asian community in the Americas.
After Acapulco, many of those sailors and merchants moved inland to Mexico City. There, in the barrio of San Juan, they set up a market for Asian goods called the Parian, named after a similar one back in Manila. It became a hub where you could buy tea, porcelain, spices.
They carved out new lives in every corner of society. In Mexico City, many Filipinos made the barrio of San Juan their home and the Parian market their playground. Some worked as barbers, carpenters, or artisans. They also shared a little taste of home, like making tuba, a palm wine that quickly caught on.
Even the Tagalog word palapa, meaning coconut palm leaves, made its way into Mexican Spanish to describe these thatched roof huts, basically twins of the Filipino bahay kubo. And the beloved ataulfo mango? It's actually descended from cultivars brought from the Philippines on those galleons that crossed the Pacific.
The voyage was nightmarish. The Pacific crossing could take 6 months, and the death toll from starvation, scurvy, and brutal treatment was horrifyingly high. And yet, for a quarter of a millennium, the galleons kept sailing, because on the other side, Asia wanted one thing more than anything else: silver.
They had the silver from the New World, but it still needed a ride to the markets of the Old. So Spain looked west, way west, and in 1565 they started sailing huge wooden buses called the Manila Galleons across the Pacific.
For decades, historians digging through the archives of colonial Mexico kept running into a curious word: chinos. And it wasn't just about goods from China, it was about people, showing up in tax records, marriage licenses, even criminal cases. Who were they?
But the term was a puzzle. These chinos were from Manila in the Philippines, yet the records listed their origins as Japan, India, basically everywhere. They were living and working alongside Spaniards, indigenous peoples, and Africans.
But once the crown decided that chinos would be recorded as indios, their story started disappearing from paper. That new label came with freedom, sure, but it also erased the line on the census.
For Filipinos, who were technically subjects of the Spanish crown, this was especially damaging. It made them foreigners when they should have been in the same category as the indigenous peoples of the Americas, Indios. Eventually, the crown issued a decree. Chinos were to be treated as Indios, monumental, because as Indios, they couldn't legally be slaves anymore.
But the story doesn't end there. History can be erased from books, but it's a lot harder to erase from our DNA. In recent years, geneticists mapping the genome of the Mexican population expected to find a mix of indigenous, European, and African ancestry.
What they found instead was a complete shock. A 2018 study revealed that about 1/3 of the people sampled from the state of Guerrero, right where the galleons used to land, have significant Asian ancestry. It's like history tried to hide the connection, but DNA was like, nah, I kept the receipts.
If these communities were so established, where did they all go? And how could the history of tens of thousands of people be almost completely forgotten? Was it disease? Migration? A catastrophic storm? Or maybe they were just folded into other towns until the names faded from maps.
It's incredible to think about these communities thriving centuries ago, their stories just waiting to be rediscovered. What part of this lost history fascinates you the most? Is it the epic voyages of the galleons, or the daily lives of the people who built these new communities?
The history of Asian immigrants in the Americas begins in the 16th century, with courageous sailors, desperate slaves, and ambitious merchants who crossed the world's largest ocean. Their story challenges us to ask, what other histories have we forgotten? And what other truths are still out there?
What else is wrong with the presentation of American history? In the next episode, we will continue exploring Asians' lost history in the Americas with the British and Dutch colonies.